All right, let's get into it. We're going to look at the topic of invincible ignorance. This should take a few videos. I'm thinking 2 or 3. I'm not sure. But we're going to get into this topic today. First question that Bishop Hay mentions regarding this. He says, now suppose a person be invincibly ignorant of the faith of Jesus Christ and his church. Will not this invincible ignorance save him? So he's invincible ignorant of the faith of Jesus Christ and invincible ignorant of the Catholic Church. Can him having invincible ignorance to these two things save the man? And this is, Bishop Abe answers it this way. He says, this is a very specious proposition. He says, and I'm afraid, for want of being properly sifted and considered, serves as an occasion of some dangerous mistake on the matter. So, like the previous question we got into, he says it's a specious proposition, meaning it sounds very probable. It sounds like that this is true. Yes, man's invincible ignorant. He doesn't know about the faith. He doesn't know about Jesus Christ. So certainly he can be saved. Okay. But Bishop Hay says, again, underneath this is missing some deeper truths that need to be explained. Okay. That's what he says here. He says, I'm afraid of wanting to being properly sifted and considered. It says it serves as an occasion of some dangerous mistake in this matter. Okay. So that notion that a person who is invincibly ignorant of the faith and of the church be saved, right? Can he be saved? That idea, that question is missing some foundational truths that need to be looked at a little bit deeper. So he says, we're going to endeavor to explain this thoroughly, he says. Now, this is what he says here. He says, here we must observe that two different questions are commonly blended together in this regard, okay? When people ask about the issue of invincible ignorance, he says, the first is, so when people are asking invincible ignorance, this is really what they're asking, okay? He says, the first is this: will a person who is invincibly ignorant of the true faith or the Church of Christ be condemned precisely on account of that ignorance? Okay, will they be condemned because they didn't know about the faith? And will they be condemned because they didn't know about the Catholic Church and what it requires? Will they be condemned because of that? Because being invincibly ignorant of it. It says, that is, will that ignorance be imputed to him as a crime? That's what people are asking, okay? Or will this invincible ignorance excuse him from the guilt of not believing? So one, if they're not, will God hold a person accountable for violating God's law as a crime for being invincibly ignorant to the faith of Jesus Christ? And will he be excused from the requirement to hold to the true faith and to be united to his Catholic Church? Okay? People are asking that. That's what people are asking. He says, and this is how he says, to this reply, that is, no man can be guilty of a sin for not doing what is absolutely out of his power to do. Right? Therefore, a person who is invincibly ignorant of the true faith and the Church of Christ will not be condemned precisely on account of that ignorance. Such ignorance will not be imputed to him as a crime. Right? It says, but will undoubtedly excuse him from the guilt of not believing. And then Bishop Hay says that this, in this, what I just said, all the divines agree without the least bit of hesitation and without the least bit of doubt. That's what he says. So he says that, so that a heathen, for example, that never heard of Jesus Christ will not be condemned as a criminal precisely for want of faith in him. Right? He says, and a heretic that never had any knowledge of the true church of Christ will not be condemned as guilty for not being joined in communion with the church. And he says this, all the divines, all the theologians, this is unanimously understood. Okay? That God, and this is a principle that we have to think about, that we as Catholics accept, okay? That God's not going to hold a person accountable for something they have no capability of doing, okay? They have no capability of being able to do. So if someone's is truly invincibly ignorant of the faith and of the requirement to join the Catholic Church, that means they're not able to do that. They're not able to come to that knowledge. So God's not going to condemn a person to hell precisely because they did not believe, or because they never heard of the Catholic Church and didn't know to join it. He's not going to hold. God holds you accountable for what you know, for what you should know, and condemns you and condemns you based upon the actions of the crimes you do then. So if he expects, and this is the truth that we hold to as Catholics. Unlike, for instance, let's give an example. Unlike, for instance, the Protestant, some of the Calvinist Protestants who say that God requires belief in his Son Jesus Christ. Okay, but God only died for his elect, and therefore he only gives grace to save those, to give them the ability to believe in his Son. He only gives those to his elect out of his own pure will. Okay, nothing in the elect. And therefore, God doesn't even give them the ability to believe. In fact, they were created for damnation. Okay? So, in this Calvinistic scheme, there is no free will. Man is not capable to come to the knowledge of the truth. But even God doesn't give them the capability to come to the knowledge of truth. Where in the Catholic system, with the Catholic truth, is that all people are given a measure of grace in order to respond to the truth. Okay, that we have God's grace that prompts us, so that we have the ability and God gives us free will in order to believe and respond to the truth. That's why God can hold us all accountable. All right. Well, in this particular Protestant system, they're not given the ability to believe. In fact, yet they're still held accountable for not believing. I mean, it just describes God in a very wicked manner. It's a false representation of the true God, that he would hold somebody culpable whom he knows doesn't have the ability, and he doesn't give the ability to believe. It's like God telling a person to go fly over, or to leap over the building, go fly over this building, and didn't give him the wings to do so, and then condemns the man for not doing so, for not flying. I give you the command to fly over the building, and you didn't do it. So I'm going to condemn you to hell for not obeying that command. But Lord, you didn't give me wings. I don't have wings. I can't. I cannot do it. I want to, but I can't. Now, in the Calvinist mind, they don't want to, but they have no ability to want to. He doesn't give them even the grace to want to. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, there's this principle that we understand as Catholics, that God's not going to hold someone culpable who doesn't have the ability to do it. Okay, it's like a person who has a mental handicap. He doesn't have the ability to commit mortal sin. You know what I'm saying? He may not know right from wrong. If a person doesn't know right from wrong, he has no mental capacity to know right from wrong. God's not going to hold a person accountable for doing something that objectively may be a mortal sin, if he doesn't have the ability to know the difference, you know? And that's what it basically is being said here with the idea of invincible ignorance. That all the divines understand that a person is not going to be held culpable, okay, for the requirement to accept the true faith, to join his Holy Catholic Church, if they had if they are invincibly ignorant to doing so. God's not going to hold them, not going to condemn them for that. God's not going to hold them culpable for that. All right? And so that's all unanimous. That's all agreed. That's agreed here. Now, Bishop Hay goes on and says, as far as the question admits, it's no dispute, what I just said. But as far as that goes, there's nothing to debate. It's completely agreed upon. He says the second question, though, the first question is, is God going to hold them guilty for not believing if if they didn't know any better, and so forth. He says the second question is this: can a person invincibly ignorant of the true faith or the Church of Jesus Christ, the Catholic Church, and living and dying in that state be saved? Now this, he says, Bishop Hay says, is a very different question from the former, right? And it's of the highest importance. Now, that's a very different question, he says. It's one thing to be invincibly ignorant of the true faith, okay? It's another thing to say that someone who's invincibly ignorant of the true faith is Catholic can yet still enter into heaven. Okay. And he's going to explain this. He says, now, to the answer to this question clearly and distinctly, we must consider two different cases. First, with regard to the Muslims, the Jews, and the heathens, who, having never heard of Jesus Christ nor his religion, are invincibly ignorant of it, many of whom there are in the world. He says, and second, with regard to those different sects of Christians who are separated from the true church of Christ by heresy. So, all right, let's pretend, let's assume that, and we're gonna look at specifically the issue of the Muslims, Jews, and heathens, and we'll look at the issue of the sects of Christians later, at another video. But let's just assume for right now, and this is what Bishop Hay is doing. Let's assume that these individuals, these Muslims, or these Jews, or these heathens, are invincibly ignorant. That is true. Let's hold that they are invincibly ignorant. But what Bishop Hay is going to address in the next question is simply this: that they are invincibly ignorant to the truth, and invincibly ignorant to the truth, but they continue to live in that religion that they belong. That's it. They're living like almost like blissfully ignorant to the fact that there is our Lord Jesus Christ, and that there is a Catholic Church in which we must join in order to be saved. But yet they're invincibly ignorant to that fact, but they continue on living as a Muslim or as a Jew or as a heathen. Can that person be saved? That's the question.